Hi guys, S.L.Ager here, author of the Cadwalader Quests, the 11 plus vocabulary novel series and their supporting workbooks, which you can see there behind me. So today really is a bit of a follow on from the last video that I've just recorded, explaining what is a grammar school and demystifying the title really. So this follows on directly from that question, and again it's a question that I see in the Facebook groups a lot. If you see my eyes going up and down, I've got notes in front of me on the screen. And also this, I always caveat with this is my personal experience and my view of why we sent our kids to a grammar school. So obviously your parents, your carers, you make the decision. Just hopefully my experience might help you make your decision. So the question that I see an awful lot in the groups, and it is a hornet's nest of a question, always causes arguments, is a grammar school right for my child? Okay, so again, it's a question that can open a rather large can of worms, and I think it's just as much as an objective question really as a subjective question, because you can look at it from both ways. So it's a topic that I would have liked to have discussed only with like-minded people, but I started on the journey with my daughter probably 8 or 9 years ago now, and there was no real Facebook groups then. There was the odd a couple of the big providers, the test providers, had a forum, but the forum's quite different to Facebook. So there was nowhere I could go. But what I have realised over the years is when you're discussing the merits of a grammar school with somebody, it might be best to speak to like-minded people that you trust, and people with experience of grammar schools, because you wouldn't ask a vegan for a recipe for a beef bourguignon. They're not going to like beef bourguignon, are they? So pick your counsel carefully. I'll never forget when I was thinking of sending Josie to Kendrick. I was out with some friends and another mother. We've got a fabulous comprehensive school up the road. It's an outstanding comp. And this other mother said to me, why on earth would you send your child on a train to Reading, which is 10 miles away, when we've got an outstanding comprehensive school up the road? And I just was not going to get into an argument with her. I just said, because it's my choice to do so. And, left it at that. Education is such a personal decision, and everything I say comes from my perspective and my experience. And hopefully what I say might resonate with you in a helpful way. So when considering the question of, is a grammar school right for my child, maybe ask yourself, what is my or our work ethic, okay, at home? If you have a strong work ethic and you like routine testing and possibly higher levels of homework and faster paced teaching, then a grammar school might be the right place for you and for your children. And when I use the term you and your children, as opposed to your child and you, in years 7, 8 and 9, they may need your support and you do need to be on board. So it has to be something that you want. And one thing that I kept in mind, and again I see this a lot, and it depends on your parenting, on your, the camp you sit in. Do you sit in the Gina Ford bringing up your children camp, or do you sit in the Montessori free school camp? Because grammar schools are a little bit more like the Gina Ford camp. And one thing that I kept in mind when making decisions for my kids' schools was, is your 9-year-old in a position to choose the right school for themselves? So when we were looking at Kendrick, I made the mistake of taking Josie to look around the Abbey, which is a very academic independent school in Reading. So you've got the Abbey there, Kendrick there, literally just around the corner. The nickname for Kendrick is the prison because it has a very high fence around it, and the Abbey is a beautiful building. Took Josie to see the Abbey. Of course, she wanted to go to the Abbey. It had lovely, shiny science labs, swimming pool. And when we left there, I said to her, "What did you like most about the Abbey?" And she said, "The food." So think carefully about where you want your children to go. Maybe only take them to see the schools that you really want them to go to. That's just a suggestion. I'm not saying do that. And remember, you probably know best. My kids went to grammar schools. Josie had one friend going, that was all, and Jude had no friends. And they've never looked back. They've made great friends, and they still see their local friends, the ones that matter to them, and they still see them. So, your child will be scared about going to a grammar school where they might not know anybody. Don't worry about it. Also, mine got on the train from year 7. There was loads of other kids getting the train to Kendrick and Reading. I went with them for the first few trips. They were absolutely fine. I know some people preferred the bus routes, but that, they take much longer. My kids prefer to get the short train journey and then the walk to school. And it's good exercise for them, and it's good training as well. And now, Josie, from being in year 8, 9, thinks nothing of getting on the train and going to Reading to meet her friends. It makes them independent. Anyway, again, my experience. So, so that might cause a bit of a rustle. I see a lot of parents who say they're going to leave the choice up to their child. As a parent, that's totally your call. It just wasn't my position. Okay. I would just going back onto the choice, obviously listen to the child's feedback on the school. It's if you've got a choice of maybe 3 grammar schools, and I know people have, then if you've got a choice of 3 grammar schools, then maybe you're happy to let your child make that ultimate choice. But we only had the choice of 1. So it was 1 grammar school or the comprehensive school, and it was going to be the grammar school all the way. And my daughter was the crash test dummy, really, because she was the first one to sit the 11 plus. And I see a lot of people say, if your child is not bright enough, they shouldn't go to grammar school. If your child needs coaching, they shouldn't go to grammar school. I'm not in that camp. Grammar schools are not a level playing field. Therefore, if you don't have some extra help, now I'm not talking about fancy tuition, for months and months. I'm talking about even help from parents at home. Then there's a high chance that you may not reach the grade needed in the 11 plus just because other children, not a level playing field. Remember, it's very bumpy and very muddy, the 11 plus field. Will have had extra tuition, might be by their parents, but that means that your child will be starting from the back foot. So I believe it's a bit of a nonsense to say if your child needs tuition, they shouldn't be doing the 11 plus, because there are other children out there who will have had lots of tuition, therefore your child is handicapped straight away. They're starting off the back foot. Also, the clever and bright, is your child clever enough for a grammar school? Again, I don't agree with that. I think if a child has had the right opportunity, the right environment, the right coaching, then, and from the right age, and when I say that, I don't mean doing 11 plus papers from year 2 or 3, but in year 3, lots of discussion around the dinner table. There's a fabulous app now called Kid Coach app. You can actually have great discussions with your children, times tables, lots of reading, the 4 operations in maths. If you've really worked on that from year 3, then your child's on the right track for the 11 plus. And I believe that any child is clever given the right opportunities, And with the right pathway, I think most children can pass 11 plus. Okay, so why did we choose Kendrick for our daughter? So she was a quick learner at primary school. She was pretty much top of the class. We did help her at home. If I said we didn't, that would be a lie. We focused, we did all her homework, we did a little bit more, and we made sure that she always did her times tables. But she was very easily distracted. She never sat still, and she needed to be pushed to focus. She wasn't one of those, gift children that sat down and went, "Oh, mummy, I want to work hard now." She wasn't. But we felt that she was very capable and would flourish in a school that was single sex, and that pushed her rather than allowing her to coast. Now, I'm not saying a comprehensive school would have allowed her to coast, but there's possibly more distraction there. And also, if she'd maybe for whatever reason not made the top two sets, then there's even more distraction, because in a comprehensive school you tend to find the children in the top sets may focus more. So we felt that Josie would be better amongst children who were maybe more studious, that would pull her up, rather than she would be distracted by kids who were not quite so interested. And although the academic standards at Kendrick, at my daughter's school, are very high, we've been surprised. Pastoral care has been great. They don't pressure those girls. If the girls can't cope with the pressure, there's someone for them to talk to. There's always an outlet. There are very academic kids in Josie's school. Josie has sat in the middle of her school very happily and never looked back. And we find that her school just fosters a healthy sense of competition. My kids are not, they're not Oxbridge kids. Well, I don't know about Jude, but Josie's decided that's not for her. It's too academic. And they're absolutely cool with that. They're supporting her all the way. So they do get a lot of homework. I mean, I say they get a lot of homework. The only comparison I know is that a very good friend of mine, she's got a boy at Reading School and she's got a boy at the comprehensive school, and Reading definitely give more homework. And just a little anecdote aside, when I went to Jude's year 8 parents' evening, we were chatting to his maths teacher, and Jude's in set 2 for maths, and we had a chat, and I said, well, is everything okay, blah 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 blah, and it came up about grades, and she just very matter-of-factly said, we expect all Reading boys to obtain a grade 9. She said, and most of them do in maths. She said some will just get a higher grade 9 and go on to do A level. She said, but that's our expectation. And it wasn't a pushy expectation, it was just their expectation, and that's kind of what the boys expect. So it's almost normalized. And again, my experience of Reading School, again, Jude's a middler. I don't think he's going to be an Oxbridge boy. If anything, he'd like to be a professional mountain bike rider, But that is fostered in his school. If you want to be right up there, if you want to be, to be an Olympiad in maths, the opportunity's there. But if you want to be a cricket player, or you want to do, Josie did textiles AS, and that was really encouraged by Kendrick School. So don't be put off by thinking it's going to be too academic for your child, because from my experience, that's not the case. But again, that's just my experience. So, okay. So our grammar schools, Reading and Kendrick, and again, I can't speak for all, they follow, pupils that go there must follow the English Baccalaureate. And what that means is they don't have a choice to do double science. They all take the triple science, which means they do physics, chemistry, and biology as separate subjects. They must take a modern foreign language at GCSE. Now, again, I'm talking of Kendrick and Reading. Check your target school's websites. Excuse me. So in essence, a few of their subjects are predetermined for them because they must sit the English Baccalaureate. That's Reading and Kendrick. And Reading School, Jude School, they also have to do RS. And some kids that enjoy RS go on to do a philosophy AS instead of a GCSE. I don't think that'll be Jude. He hates RS. Anyway, excuse my dogs there. So another thing I hear a lot, parents say that they're worried if their child scrapes through the 11 plus, that they'll really struggle in the grammar school. Well, that's a valid worry, but I look at that from a certain perspective. They've done so well to pass the test anyway and get into the grammar school. They all sit the same GCSEs. So, you know, they're all actually going through that same process. And if your child gets into a grammar school and they're not at the top, then as a parent, perhaps that's up to you to reassure your child that that's okay. So as I've just said, both of my kids sit in the middle of their grammar school, and we're fine with that. We're okay with that, you know. Our aim was to get them in there for the environment. Because to me, a grammar school is all about the environment. And don't get me wrong, you know, there's Reading School, you know, it's not perfect, it's full of boys, you know, you do hear of scuffles here and there. My daughter's at Kendrick School, and I can only vouch for us, we've never had a problem with either school in terms of friendships or bullying. And I'm not saying that there are kids there who haven't, I don't know about that, but from my experience, it's been absolutely great. But I reassure my kids that they're already in the cream at the top of the milk, you know, and if they're sitting in the cream, then that's fine. And that's not to denigrate comprehensive schools. You know, there are kids in comprehensive schools that do phenomenally well. I just felt that the grammars were better for my two. And it's completely personal, and whatever you decide is your call. This is just my experience. So I've put, on my notes here, I've put, interestingly, I don't think the big question here is a grammar school right for my child? I've put, so I said, is the big question, is preparing for the 11 plus for a specific grammar school right for my child? And what do I mean by this, and why do I think that this is the bigger question? Well, not all 11 plus entrance exams, which I said in my first video, what is a grammar school, are made the same. And not all grammar schools are made the same. And what do I mean by that? So there are lots of different types of 11 plus exams. And you may find that some of the super selectives, such as Henrietta Barnett, St. Olave's, the Sutton schools that have 2 rounds of exams, are much more difficult. I'm not saying they are, I'm saying you might find, well, in actual fact, I think they probably are. You might find them more difficult than, say, an entrance test for Bucks, which is a GL exam. All the children take it, and there are more grammar schools. So, you know, there are more places. Same with Kent. And you might find that some of the super selectives that have creative writing as part of their entrance tests are more difficult, just because of the nature of creative writing. And like the Essex, the CSSE tests, where again they write their own tests. Yes, I think they do write their own tests. You know, they have 2 little creative writing pieces which have to be written in 6 or 7 sentences with 10 minutes each. So some tests might be more difficult, and I guess it's up to you as a parent to decide whether you want to put your child through the prep for the tests. And you know, some parents may want to just have a go at the test, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what I would have done for my kids. I wanted them to go into the test to feel prepared. And actually, when Josie came out of her test, she said, "Oh, thanks for making me work hard, Mum." She said, "Because I didn't find it that difficult." And actually, Josie passed the Kendrick test with a very, very high mark. And indeed, we managed to find out just from looking at the scores of where she came. And she came 12th overall and second in the verbal reasoning. Yet, I think we really worked hard for the 11 plus, but now that she's in the school and she's in control of much more of her own destiny, she sits in the middle and she's happy there, and we are happy for her to be there. So yeah, I think it's more about, not is a grammar school right for me, is the prep to get into the grammar school right for us as a family. Okay, so right, I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, I've put here, Josie's done her GCSEs in COVID, so I can't talk for everybody else's GCSEs, but she sitting her mocks. We didn't know about the cancellation then, so she sat her mocks as though she was sitting the real things. And stick with me here because I'll get to the point. As a parent, I found her sitting GCSEs less stressful than the 11 plus, because when they do the 11 plus, they're 9 years old, and it's really much more of your responsibility as a parent. And I think now that she's at grammar school and she's been through the 11 plus, she understands that there's no magic to passing the 11 plus, passing GCSEs. It's just hard graft, keep your head down and work, ask for support if you need it, and as parents, keep a close eye on them for stress. You know, I knew when Josie was getting stressed, and if and when she got stressed, I did what I could to help her. And if I couldn't help her, then I went to her teachers and also her friends. But with the 11 plus, it's you, your child, and a tutor if they've got one. So I found the 11 plus more stressful than anything else. Yeah, also, when they were that age, when they were 9 and 10, it's difficult perhaps to convince a 9 and 10-year-old that passing the 11 plus might, make a difference to their future education, because they're 9. Whereas, and they're more interested in play, and they're more interested in being with their friends. Whereas when they're doing their GCSEs, they understand that concept. And it's because of these factors that what I'm coming to in a second is to say that maybe certain 11 plus tests, not all, some are harder than others, might just be the hardest exam for any parent and child to go through. Okay, so what you need to consider when making a decision, is a grammar school the right choice for my child, is look at your target schools and think, can we cope with the added pressure that if we're preparing for this 11 plus test brings? So look at your schools, look at the competition for the grammar school, look at the realistic marks that you need to get in. And if you're in an area that it's got super selectives or very competitive for places like Kendrick and Reading that needed high marks, so not just a pass, a high mark, are you prepared to put in the work it needs? Because how disappointing is it for your child to reach the criteria and get enough marks, pass, and then not get a place? So if you're really going to try for one of these super selectives, it's worth pushing the extra mile to make sure you get a place. So, and when I use the term super selective, I don't want you to think that I think those schools are better. It's not. It's just that they may be very oversubscribed, and places were very fierce for our schools, and that's where the pressure lies. Because also, when Josie sat the test, I think about 10 other children from her primary school sat the test. So they're all fighting for a place against each other. Only 2 of them passed, and actually when Jude sat, nobody else passed. But in the lead up to it, they are all they're all sort of in competition against each other. And like for my children's schools, places were allocated to 2 decimal points. So that's what split the places. Okay. So yeah, so that's where I think the stress lies, is if you're prepping for super selectives or over subscribed places, it's the test that's really hard. The other thing I think you might want to consider is travel times. I see some horrendous travel times to schools. What works for you guys? So my kids' journeys are an hour door to door. That sounds like a lot, but they're actually only on the train for 13 minutes. So if they walk to the station from here, that makes it longer, but they do have a walk at the other end of when they get off in Reading. But they like that walk because they're walking with friends. They meet their friends, they have a chat, and it's good exercise. It gets on their nerves a bit when trains are cancelled because they can't just walk. But you know, it's a bit expensive. But if I was asked whether I'd do this again, I would say definitely yes. And both of the kids would definitely say they've got no problems with their schools at all. Okay. I think that's probably about it. And for us, what I would say to parents who are really worried about the whole, can my child keep up if they've not got a massively high mark but get a place, is, from my experience, once your child is in grammar school, life pretty reverts to normal. Year 7 is a shock for parent and child. And it certainly was at Reading School, because in that first term at Reading, it was like, woof, baptism of fire. We got, I would say, too much homework. But, you know, we got over that blip. And then they just settle in. Year 7 is scary, particularly for your first crash test dummy child. So kind of to sum up the question, for me, the choice of grammar school was all about environment. We wanted a place where perhaps like-minded parents sent their like-minded kids, and a place where the kids would be kept on their toes and expectations were high. You know, perhaps it's about mindset and expectation. And if you have the right mindset, the right attitude and expectation, this will, you know, rub off onto your child, and a grammar school will actually just become the right place for your child. And again, this is not to denigrate any comprehensive schools. I've got nothing against them. It's horses for courses. But just going back to the whole grammar school, the icing on the cake is state grammar schools are free. So, you know, they're free. Also, just one other thing, in my daughter's school, I don't know about Jude yet, but as she went through the school, the class sizes were smaller. So her maths set was small, her science sets were small, and when I say small, there was only 16 in her maths set. So again, I can't speak for all other grammar schools, but certainly Josie and Jude's class sizes, certainly Josie's, as she went through the school, were small. So there was not 32 kids in a class. So, and as I say, the icing on the cake is they're free. So I hope that helps. I hope it's reassured you if you're worried. And if you're not worried, I hope it's just helped with your thinking about whether a grammar school is the right place for your child. So if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe wherever it is on the screen if you want more videos, and hopefully I'll see you soon.